Well, I'd like to ask you to just kind of go through real quickly the types of programs that you offer to your clientele, and then I'd really like to hear about who your typical clientele is.
We have two programs. We have the winter program, adaptive snow sports, for which we're most widely known. We have a small paddling program in the summer. I don't have access to as many experienced instructors in that program, and so it's limited by that capacity, and it's weekends only. Our snow sports is 7 days a week, as long as there's snow on the ground and the ski resort is open. But we essentially take all comers in the winter program, and I think we track this. I think this past year we taught persons of all ages with about 19 different types of cognitive and physical disabilities.
Okay, welcome to the next edition of Brain Case Live. I have with me today Dave Shreve. He is the executive director of Wintergreen Adaptive Sports, which is a fantastic organization in Virginia that I learned about during a seminar on traumatic brain injury that was hosted by the Brain Injury Association of Virginia. Dave, welcome to our podcast. Would you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been the director at Wintergreen Adaptive Sports since 2013. I began my connection with the organization as far back as 1999 when I became a volunteer. My oldest daughter, who was 6 years old at the time and who is a spina bifida patient, discovered the organization on her own. She was at what used to be called the Kluge Rehabilitation Center at UVA. When we first came to Charlottesville. I was a professor of economic history at UVA at the time, and she found a brochure on the countertop and asked her mother and I if we'd consider taking her up on the mountain, and we did within a few months, and the rest is history. She became a student, then a junior instructor, then a certified senior instructor and ski racer. She was recruited for the Paralympics because she was a serious student and was approaching her graduation at UVA and then entry into law school a little bit later. She decided to forego that. As many of your listeners will know, it takes a lot of dedication when you prepare for any Olympic training and so forth. So as much as she loved it and would have relished the opportunity, she didn't do that. But all that is to say, that's how I got swept into the Woz family, and little by little became a volunteer and then a board member. And in 2013, I became the director.
Well, tell us a little bit about Woz, or Wintergreen Adaptive Sports. And just tell us a little bit about the history of it, what its mission is, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, like many adaptive sports organizations, and fortunately, they've grown in number quite dramatically over the last couple of decades. We are a nonprofit, a 501c3. There are a handful, especially winter sports, adaptive sports organizations that are connected to for-profit resorts as an arm of their ski school, just a few of those. And then there's one or two that I've come to know pretty well that are affiliated with universities, such as the program at the University of New Hampshire, which is a terrific program. But generally, most of them are like us. They're 501c3 nonprofits. We began life in that manner in 1996. And generally, our history goes back to
that was the year I graduated from law school in Charlotte.
Yeah. Well, it seems like yesterday because, again, I sort of joined the organization in 99 when my daughter discovered it at 6 years old. And now she's a practicing attorney up in Washington, D.C. And will be finally returning to the fold, I think, next winter because she hasn't had much time during the law school years and her early years of practice to join us, but I think she'll come back next winter. So we're all excited about that. But the organization really started unofficially back in the 1980s. It's generally dated to 1984 when our founder, a gentleman named Michael Zuckerman, was working in the ski school. And Michael was a special ed teacher in the Charlottesville area, expert ski instructor. So he already had a kind of an affinity for teaching persons with disabilities. And what happened in 84 was this young man showed up. He was an above knee amputee. He had his own gear, but he came to the ski school and he said, "Hey, can somebody help me sharpen my skills?" And so Michael jumped at the opportunity, went out on a lesson with him, felt that he helped him at least in some small way, but then became intrigued by the idea of doing more of this. And at the time, there were only probably less than a dozen adaptive ski organizations in the country. And Michael found one in Vermont, went up there for training, talked to them about it, and gradually started to welcome more persons with disabilities to the ski school. And what happened was, in the wake of all that, as you probably know, in 1990, we were smart enough to pass important legislation, the Americans with Disabilities Act, which passed by an excruciatingly small margin, I'm sorry to say, but was long overdue. And because of the ADA, the resort began to recognize in the ensuing years, 91, 92, 93, that there was likely to be a burgeoning demand for adaptive sports instruction. And I think it was probably around late 94, they came to Michael and asked him to consider establishing a nonprofit. So that's how we got started. Took a couple years to get organized, and then we grew steadily from that point.
So is the organization physically located at the Wintergreen Resort, or do you have like offices?
Yes.
Somewhere?
No, we're very fortunate in our relationship with the for-profit private resort that they basically give us a place to work alongside what is often referred to as the bunny trail, the beginner's trail that you access as soon as you leave the ski rental shop at Wintergreen. So we're 50 yards downslope from there. Really noticeable space, easy to access. The one problem which we've been working on for years is we are at the end of a parking lot that's gated. And so we have to have a special card to let people into the parking lot on weekends. Weekdays, it's not a problem. But for an organization that wants to be as accessible as it possibly can, that's been a small stumbling block. Other than that, the location's great. What the resort does for us in helping us do our work has been tremendous.
Well, I'd like to ask you to just kind of go through real quickly the types of programs that you offer to your clientele, and then I'd really like to hear about who your typical clientele is. What sort of disabilities are we talking about, and does it run the gamut, or does it tend to be one group versus another?
Yeah, well, we could begin there because it does run the gamut, so it's easy to summarize that. We generally, and we have two programs. We have the winter program, adaptive snow sports, for which we're most widely known. We have a small paddling program in the summer. I don't have access to as many experienced instructors in that program, and so it's limited by that capacity, and it's weekends only. Our snow sports is 7 days a week, as long as there's snow on the ground and the ski resort is open. But we essentially take all comers in the winter program, and I think we track this. I think this past year we taught persons of all ages with about 19 different types of cognitive and physical disabilities. Our largest single cohort are teens on the autism spectrum. In the singular physical disability categories, our largest cohort of students are probably young adults with CP, spina bifida, spinal cord injuries, and the like.
Right. So how do you find people to staff your organization and to do these programs? And if somebody's interested in helping out, becoming a volunteer, what can you tell us about the path to doing that?
Well, we do this in some formal ways, but mostly ad hoc. And that is, we do a lot of outreach um, events, and I in the off season, a big part of my job is to talk to people and go places where we might find new volunteers or students or people helping us in one way or another with what we do. Um, and we don't leave any stones unturned in that effort. We're limited in our reach, of course, and we tend to reach people in Virginia most of all, and Central Virginia uh, uh, for the most part. But we have students from Maryland and North Carolina and Delaware and West Virginia as well. Um, the resort where we get to work is uh, probably one of the best in the Mid-Atlantic in terms of snowmaking and its terrain, and it's a great place in which to engage in the activities. But beyond that, um, and I can't take any credit for this because most of this predates my work as director. We have probably 15 to 20 instructors, for instance, who have been with us for 20 years. Um, and so, I know a little bit about their history and how they came to us, but some of them just kind of showed up at our doorstep, and saw what we were doing. And some of them were part of families that had second homes at Wintergreen or lived in the area or went to school at the high school where our founding director was a teacher,
Right.
a myriad of associations like that. But in that cohort of instructors, and they're about 85 strong this past winter, we have the largest contingent of advanced certified instructors in the Eastern United States. And that includes, bigger programs in places like Vermont and upstate New York. So it's quite amazing because, this is, some people are surprised to learn that there is a resort here in Virginia, in this part of the world, if they're not from here.
Right.
And then if they know it, they're still surprised to learn that we have that many advanced and very highly skilled instructors.
That's wonderful. So do you sometimes have people see your programming out on the slopes and ask about it?
We
Uh,
do.
that's
Yeah. And one of the things I did, people accused me of picking the color of our uniform jackets because of the colors associated with my alma mater, which is Louisiana State University. So we have these very bright purple jackets that we wear. And one of the reasons we went with that color, and they were made for us by a Canadian company up in Ontario, is that they stood out. So we couldn't be confused with the ski school or the lift operators or the safety patrollers who were out there in their yellow or red jackets and whatnot. And if families come to us, we have some observation decks, and it's really easy to spot our lessons because you look for the purple jackets out on the trail. So just this year alone, we had a young lady who became one of our junior instructors, and when she introduced herself, she goes, I'd like to be considered for a position as a junior instructor. And I guess she said that secondly, but she began the conversation saying, I'd like to wear the purple jacket. So yes, people see us out on the trails doing our work, and they come knock on our door, which is, we welcome that, of course.
So tell us about the age of your clientele. Is it mostly children or all children, or what about that?
All ages. I tell people with an asterisk that it's 3 to 88 because our youngest ever was 3 and our oldest ever was 88. They happen to have come to us on the same day a couple of years ago.
Wow.
It was a great grandfather and his great granddaughter. She was a cerebral palsy patient. He was a expert skier and a member of the ski school for many years, who had 2 knee replacement surgeries and was using a walker. And so we put them both in sit skis and tethered them down the hill side by side on that one uh, pretty glorious day on the mountain.
Well, I
Uh,
was on your website and I saw some of the sit skis, and those are great how they work. I mean, so tell me how that works physically. It looks like you have an instructor not really tethered to the
but it depends, and I guess an important point to make here is that we individualize all of our lessons. So we can't really say we have a typical student.
sure.
They all come to us with different abilities and different desires. Some want to, make their way to the Paralympics. Others just want to have fun and get outside in a beautiful place on this terrain. And we can do, all of the above. Um, but what we do with our sit skis ranges from somebody who is in a bi-ski and they're tethered, and we can do either what we call thumb tethering, where we're holding the grab bar in the back of the ski, a very close at hand type tethering operation, or we can tether them with actual rope tethers, webbing, uh, and leave some slack and let them initiate turns by leaning or using their upper body strength if they happen to have sufficient uh, upper body strength. If they're fairly athletic but have, say, a spinal cord injury or some other type of injury or disability where they have lower extremity paralysis, but they can initiate the turns on their own and learn how to balance without riggers, we can put them in a monoski, and we can start them usually with some loose tethering and then eventually let them have independence and ski on their own once we teach them how to, you know, uh, ride the lift, get the ski up onto the lift itself, and all of which requires a little separate training on its own. So
Right.
yeah, so we do bi-skis and mono-skis and all manner of dependence versus independence, depending on both the level of the disability and the experience of the student. So they can begin at one level and progress to another.
All right. I've heard about your Wounded Warrior project. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, when, early in our existence, I think it was around 2003 or four, um, a group in the DC area, they're officially in Bethesda, Maryland, formerly known as Disabled Sports USA. They now go by the name of Move United. They combined with another organization and came up with a new name. Their founding director was a skiing enthusiast. He was a Vietnam veteran, injured in that conflict, and he asked us if we would consider having a special weekend event for wounded warriors, and we jumped at the opportunity. We started that about 20 years ago, and we've held that event every year since. Um, it's an event that lasts 3 days. It includes skiing, snow sports in general, skiing or snowboarding. We invite family members and caregivers. We provide all meals and lodging. And the lodging comes courtesy of our friends who have mountain homes or condos. There is no hotel at the resort, so we rely on these friends of the program for that. And we've also initiated in more recently what we call Every Day is Armed Services Day, because we have a wait list for that weekend now, and we limit it to roughly 15 service members and their families and caregivers. The Everyday program offers complimentary instruction, gear, and lift tickets to any of these wounded warriors anytime we're open throughout the season. So those are the two vestiges of that special kind of programming.
So tell us about your season. When does it start? When does it end, or does it ever end? And how many days a week are you operating?
So I think I mentioned this in passing before. We're 7 days a week. When the resort opens we try to open. Generally, our open date often falls on a weekend. So let's say if it's early December and the resort lays down enough snow, we get cold enough air temperatures, and they open on a Thursday, then we'll probably open that Saturday, just to test the water a little bit before we get open. And we also have 2 weekends of in-house training for our instructors, however experienced they may be. They may have, be 20-year veterans of our program. We still have refresher training every year before we start. So our target start date is usually around the middle of December. And if we're lucky, we go through early March. We cap our season on the first Saturday in March with a celebration of our volunteers, and we call it our Mardi Gras celebration. So it's a Mardi Gras theme. We have a cookout, we have special events, a parade, costume contests, and it's a fun day on the snow. And that sort of marks the beginning of the end. If we happen to be blessed that year with a lot of cold air and a lot of snow, we'll carry on for a few days. If not, that's usually very close to when the resort closes, in early March.
Right. So if I'm someone who wants to volunteer and get involved or even donate to the organization, tell us how I would go about doing that.
Well, our website is the easiest access. My contact information, email and phone number is splashed across that on several pages. Right. There's a page devoted to volunteers who want to sign up for the first time, and there's a registration there. The caveat there is if they came to us, say now or anytime this summer, we generally don't sift through those until after Labor Day. We'll contact you and say, yes, we got your registration. We'll be in touch, but we'll likely not get back to the prospective winter volunteers until after Labor Day. We have a small summer paddling program. So if anyone out there is interested in kayaking or canoeing and have some experience with that, we don't require in either program that our folks have experience with adaptive instruction. We offer lots of training opportunities in that regard. And all we require is that they have advanced intermediate skills in either the snow sports or the paddling sports to begin with, and we can take it from there. So don't shy away if you've never worked with students with disabilities. We can help you start that. And what we'll do, of course, is all of our lessons have more than one instructor. So we'll always pair a rookie instructor with a senior instructor, and it's sort of an apprentice position at that point.
Got it. And if I'm a parent of a youngster or even an older person who wants to actually be a participant in one of your programs, how do I do that? What would be the first thing to do?
Yeah, again, the website, we have a page devoted to registration for lessons. And we, try to update that regularly, and they are routed to my email and to, in the winter, my snow sports director, who is a seasonal full-time employee during the winter. We have a really, really small budget and staff. I'm the only year-round full-time employee, but we do have the seasonal winter staff as well. And our instructors are volunteers. So those 85 very experienced, very talented and dedicated instructors are volunteers. One of the things we do for them is that I raise money, and my friends on the board of directors who help with this raise money to pay for any training they would want to undertake. Some of which is in-house and doesn't really cost us much on the margin, but some of which is offered by external organizations at other resorts, and we'll give them gas money and a little money for lodging. We'll pay their registration fees, etc. We want our folks to get as much training as they can handle.
All right. Well, listen, the website again, folks, is www.wintergreenadaptivesports.org, and you're listening to Dave Shreve. So reach out to him if you want to get involved, or if you have someone who might want to participate in one of their programs. Excellent organization. And Dave, it's so good to see you again. You're doing good work, and that's so important. And
thank you for inviting me in. And I will add this as well. We we spent a lot of energy and time in the last year putting on a new addition to our building on the side of the ski trail.
Oh, good.
And we find it to be a very commodious, welcoming place. And so anybody interested, and you can certainly, as recommended, sign up on the website, but you can drop in too anytime and just kind of see the program in action and see if it's something that you thought it was, and come say hello, and we'll introduce you to everybody doing the work and to our students having all the fun out on the snow.
All right. Great information. Again, folks, this has been Brain Case Live. Thank you for watching.